Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest AFTN postgame show on YouTube. It's also a podcast recording. We're a little bit late because Steve had more attempts to log into this than the Whitecaps had shots in the last two games against TFC. But we'll get to all that. Let's introduce ourselves to kick everything off. If you don't know, I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
And I'm Zachary Adam Eisenhammer.
We are back for another show. We're going to talk Whitecaps, we're going to talk Canadian Premier League, we're going to talk World Cup qualifiers. There's a lot in store, but we are going to kick things off talking Whitecaps. MLS is back, and we're just staying in Canada, doing a never-ending round robin. We've played 2 games against TFC, we've got another game coming up on Tuesday against Montreal, then a little bit of a break. Then we welcome our Eastern friends out here. Can't wait for that because these 2 games have been so much fun so far.
And everything they'll bring to us too.
Yes.
From the East.
I don't know, it's more likely that we're going to be giving it to them the way that things are going out here in BC just now, but...
No, I'm talking about like powdered milk and other stuff like that.
Oh,
yeah.
For our ration books, yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't obviously done a show since Tuesday's game, and I don't want to delve too much into that, but let's just get your thoughts from that game on Tuesday to kick things off. It was 3-0, and I think it's pretty fair to say the Whitecaps were lucky to get 0.
He overperformed to get the 0, basically.
Yep. Oh, man.
How did you come away from that? Because Lucas Cavallini described it as embarrassing, and he also said it can't get worse than that, and we're all like, oh, Lucas... You've got so much to learn about being here in Vancouver.
Yeah. If you think you hit the bottom of the barrel, there's a lot more there where it came from.
It'd be nice if he could hit something, but back of the net would be nice.
I think right now he's just trying too hard because there's no support, so he tried to do everything himself, and it's not working because he's not that type of player.
I felt lucky because I've been on holidays, and so I didn't actually watch it live. I've only seen parts of it. And,
we don't want to spoil it for you then.
Yeah, no. This is not like the Voyagers Cup for you a couple years ago, Steve. I won't be going back to look at it.
You should. I have it on the PVR. I haven't deleted it yet, and I'm thinking I might watch it again.
It could also be the Cornelius effect, the differences between the 2 games, because he seems to. I think he had a really good record at the bubble, and today they only let 1 goal in, where opposed to the last game was 3. So.
Yeah,
I don't know what he needs to do to make sure he's a regular, but he seems to perform better when he's in the lineup.
I think the way that things are going, we've got a chance of making it into the starting lineup though before the end of the season. Just between injuries, folk not travelling, people breaking rules, which will come to others seemingly not wanting to play for the Whitecaps, if you can believe delivery food people, but. These are all things that we'll come to over the course of the show. Let's look at tonight's game first. It is a post-game show, so let's get into tonight's game. It wasn't as bad as Tuesday. There's a positive. That's one for the good, the bad and the ugly part of the show. We only let in 1 goal as opposed to 3. And it wasn't like Tuesday was 3 goals going on 6, 7 or 8. Tonight was 1 maybe going on 2 or 3. I think TFC kind of took their foot off the pedal a little bit.
It looked like it. Yeah, it looked a little scary in the first half. It looked like it was going to be run away with it, but like either the Whitecaps tightened up or TFC let off the gas. It was either or. I think it's more TFC let off the gas.
I mean, come on, like, the first game was a little bit different, but these look like TFC has brought in some team to do training against. Like, tonight it was so slow. The pace was so slow, and Vancouver was so defensive and so pushed back so deep, like started so deep that TFC was just having. It was like TFC was like Vanny was just like, hey, let's go out and work on some things, and we know we're gonna win, so let's just try a few things. I want to see good movement around the box. I want to see some passing. I want to see some creativity. Keep a clean sheet. Yeah. No one get hurt, so we can get the 3 points and move on. Like it was like watching a training, like a bad training session, really.
Yeah. It's essentially it's national training, basically. You could kind of call it national.
It was like for John Herdman just to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
See, if Inbeom Hwang was still here, he's used to national training. He'd have been great at this. But I don't know if this was a game that's played here. We used to play in the school playground, like attackers and defenders when we were playing football. So you'd have one team that was attackers, one was defenders. That's what it felt like for a big chunk of the game, especially the first half. And in the second half, it kind of then felt TFC were like, okay, let's get a little bit of defensive training in. We'll give the Whitecaps the ball because we know they're not going to do anything with it. They managed one shot tonight. They managed one shot, on target. One shot on target tonight, one shot on target on Tuesday. Yay. It's hard to see how you turn that around. On the plus side, we got our two strikers back that were missing in Orlando, Toss Ricketts and Lucas Cavallini. On the negative side, we couldn't get the ball to them.
Exactly, that's the problem. It didn't make, like, it seems like now the bubble, it didn't make a difference who was playing up top because nobody could get the ball to them. And they didn't have the counterattacks to take advantage because that's where a lot of goals came from.
Yeah, but the counterattacks came from Ali Adnan being usually making a quality pass, and also from Yordy and Dahomey, doing the running, doing the adding the quickness to the counterattack, right? And Reyna did not look good the other day, and
he didn't look good today either.
Didn't look good today either, for sure. But Dahomey came on and ended up moving into like a right wing back position, which was
the subs. The subs in general were just absolutely bizarre. By the end of the game, if you asked me to say what the shape of the team was and who was playing where, I genuinely would have struggled to say what that was.
I call it blob, the shape.
That's what some of the heat maps have been looking like for the Whitecaps.
There was one point in today's game where Dahomey, it was off a set piece or something, and it came to him on the right-hand side. He's by himself there. He wasn't able to cross it in right away, and nobody came to support him. And basically, the ball just eventually went over the line and that was basically symbolic of the whole game, where they just didn't know what to do with the ball until it was too late, and TFC overmanned whoever had the ball.
Hey, don't start talking about whether balls are going over the line or not, because apparently, according to VAR, it didn't go over the line on Tuesday. And for me, that was the turning point. If that had been given and TFC hadn't got that second goal, I think we'd have won that game on Tuesday 2-1.
Sure, Michael. But the thing about that...
Take the rest of my drugs just now.
No, but the thing about that isn't the discussion around that whether or not it's like a goal line, right? It's the whole of the ball has to be over the whole of the line, right? So sure, you could see the green between the ball and the line, but the circumference of the ball was still over the line, is what the officials determined, right?
Let's not talk about Tuesday anymore. Let's roll back though. I want us to look at the starting lineup now. Obviously, Yordy Reyna did not play. He wasn't going to start anyway, but he was meant to be on the bench, and then. Never mind getting pulled off at half-time. He was pulled off before the start of the game, which is going to tire a lad out. So, I mean, it's probably good to have him in the stands after that. I think it's miraculous that players are basically in a bubble of sorts, but you can still be late for something in that bubble. Because that's the official word. He was late, and it's not apparently the first time that he's been late. I asked MDS after the match about it, and he said... It's no big drama. They've got rules and regulations. Yordy breached it. It's a one-off, not featuring him, because they had to make a statement to the rest of the locker room that rules and regulations have to get followed. But this is not the first time that Reyna has breached rules and regulations. We'll just stick to the Canadian aspect of that.
Okay, I was wondering where you're going with.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's just stick to the Canadian aspect. But he's done things before. His coat is on a sugary peg, as we would say in Scotland.
I'll take your word for that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, let's talk a bit more about Reyna in the next part, actually. Let's just do the game in this one. So the lineup, when you saw it, a lot of folk, I read some of the Twitter comments right after the Caps had tweeted out the lineup, and it was all like, this is the worst lineup ever, this is the worst team ever. I had looked at it and I thought, oh yeah, that's not bad considering who we had, because I knew that we were going to be going 3-5-2, 5-3-2, however you want to look at it. So the defence was what I was expecting, up front was what I was expecting. So if you've got that, your midfield options, if you actually want central midfielders in there, you didn't really have any other options but the three guys that started. Now, I'm not saying it's a strong lineup, but this is all that we could have put out.
Yeah, they set up to defend with 8, like a minimum of 8, maybe 9, right? And so after you get, outplayed and beaten 3-0 in the previous, a few days before, it makes sense to want to make sure that that doesn't happen again on the defensively. But I guess in one sense, I hear you and I agree with you that with all of the limitations that they have or that they've put on themselves, it's understandable that this is the kind of starting line that they have for a game like this.
Steve, what would you say you could do to tweak that, to make it stronger, to make them competitive? Because if you want to go 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, I can't see anyone else that we would slot in. Maybe move Rose to the midfield and play Kamiri in the middle of the defence.
That's the only option. The only option is basically they need to get healthier. They really, or bring in another player or something like that in the midfield, because on hurt right now you got Bikel, who would be nice in the midfield. I'd prefer Rose in the midfield if Godoy was back in the back three. So there are options, but the problem is that most of these guys aren't ready to play and they're injured. I think MDS was saying Godoy has just had a frustrating year, or he's been frustrating this year because of all the injuries, and they've had to deal with it. Considering they paid a big chunk of money for him, considering the position he plays too. They don't normally spend that much on that. So, and that makes a huge difference when you come to where the lineups are. Because I was surprised they actually took Kamiri off, but not considering the way he's played. Like, he shouldn't be in the lineup at this point, considering all the issues they've had since the restart.
Yeah.
But for once they actually took him off, and I hope he stays off until he's ready to play or gets everything sorted out, because he's not ready for MLS at this point.
No. I mean, talking of Andy Rose, I thought he was the man of the match on Tuesday. And it's like, what is his best position? Is it centre-back? Is it centre midfield? That's actually something that I asked MDS on the conference call on Thursday. So for those of you listening on the podcast, I'll just play you what he had to say about that just now.
It's a great point you talk, and I'm happy you talk about that, because lately I've had a lot of questions that were not related to soccer, and you bring soccer questions, and it's great. Andy, as in my opinion, but this is just my opinion, please, Andy should have been a center back when he was 19, 18 years old. I think he would have been a very good center back today. I think he's a better center back than he is probably as a midfielder. This year he's learned the position. Even last year, he's learned the position well. He's an intelligent player. He likes the game. He likes to learn about the game. But like you said, it's a player that you could use him in the midfield. What I think is Andy maybe doesn't have the full range of mobility to play in a two-man midfield. But in a three-man midfield where he's the one probably being the number 6, he's a player that could play a very good positional role there. But when you look also at the number of center backs that we have in the roster, and also at the type of fullbacks that we have that are more, in my opinion, wing backs, well, you could also look at the possibility of us being with a back three, with Andy being one of the players in the back three also. It's not automatically Andy always only being with a back in a back four. But I agree with you, Andy could do both roles well.
So MDS feels Andy Rose's best position is centre-back, and that from the age of 19 he should maybe have been a centre-back and groomed himself to be in that position. And I think I do like him as a midfielder, but he's a bit slow, so he could be your DM, the guy that's sitting in front of that back line if you're playing a flat back four. But if you are going 5 at the back, 3 at the back, I don't mind him being the guy that's in the middle, except tonight he wasn't in the middle, he was the centre-back that was on the right. And I don't think that suits him at all.
Because I think MDS has mentioned before, I think he likes having the centre-backs that can control the ball. Mm-hmm. And obviously Andy Rose being a bigger guy and being able, having played midfield, that probably got him suited for what MDS wants in centre-backs. And maybe that's the reason why Cornelius doesn't get that much time, because he doesn't handle the ball as much as the other guys do. So yeah. I think that maybe centre-back is the best position, but they're so lacking in midfield right now that
I know.
They need something up there too.
To counter that, Michael, the one thing I thought that was good about, or one of the things I guess that was positive about the center back setup today was I appreciated Ranko in the middle, and I appreciate him there because he is good at playing the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him in Orlando take the ball up the pitch, so I mean, he can certainly do that. So I mean, he does add that from being in the middle of the park, then the other two centre backs can kind of close ranks a little bit. But this is a team. When you go up against the likes of Toronto, the difference in class is just incredible. And I was listening to TSN radio earlier today. Pete Shad was on it, and he summed it up perfectly, because he said TFC basically have 3 tiers of players. You've got your elite players, you've got your DPs, you've got the likes of Bradley, Altidore, Pozuelo, these guys that are your real difference makers that cost money. Then you've got your really good, serviceable MLS players. So you've got guys that have done it in the league, guys that are doing it, like even Richie Larea, goal scorer tonight, Nick De Leon, he's another great example. So these are the guys that are doing it over and over. And then you've got the young Canadian homegrown guys that's coming through the ranks that are struggling to really get in the team because the first 2 tiers are so good.
They are getting in the team though, because like a guy like Liam Fraser, who because the whole rest of the 11 is good, he's actually succeeding because he's got a good solid group behind him.
Yeah, no,
it was his first start since like last year, right?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even make it to the hour mark today, but this was the kind of game that you can give a guy like him a run out because you're like, yeah, this is fine. It's the Whitecaps. That's the kind of sad thing about this, really. If you look at the Whitecaps, we don't have anyone in that elite. Maybe Ali Adnan, you could say, is an elite player because we know what he's capable of. But without a supporting cast, he doesn't really thrive as an elite player. He's not showing that he's an elite player. Inbeom Hwang could have been an elite player, and we'll talk about him in the next part and his departure. We don't even have what you could look at as that many really good MLS veteran people. You've got Andy Rose, and then that's kind of it. Russell Tybert, Ricketts. Then you've got guys that they're not homegrown. We've got our own little tier of guys that we've brought into the league, but they're not doing great. And again, it's because they maybe don't have the players around them that's helping them to succeed. It's hard to see how you get out of this or what happens to change this, basically.
Yeah, I was thinking about their midfield. Like you got just like 4 of the guys that are playing it around there. You got Pozuelo, you got Piatti, you got Osorio, you got Bradley. The Whitecaps could just use one of those guys, and that would make a massive difference. Even take Jonathan Osorio, who's probably the least expensive and least known player, maybe, or out of the 4, and he would make a huge difference in this Whitecaps lineup. So they need somebody to just be able. They need a couple guys. I know Wosu, I think, could be that one of those guys, but if they could get somebody better than him, to pair up, and they could just drive the ball up the field through the midfield and distribute it through there. That's what they're lacking. They need that one premier player in that central midfield.
Yeah, and we're not going to get it just now. We're not going to get it this season because you're looking at quarantine.
Yeah, but just get the person in, get them 14 days. They'll be ready for next year. Who knows when quarantine's going to be over? Just get it done. And everybody's saying that because of COVID, the prices are down. Why not take advantage of that and bring somebody in? Yeah. Even if it doesn't. How many times? Look, I think one of the best examples is Kendall Waston, bringing him in half a year early or something like that.
He came in August, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. Before they were expecting to come in. They were expecting to come in January, and he made a massive difference, not only right off the bat, but next year because he was already acclimated to the environment.
I agree with you, Steve, that timing worked out really well. But remember, you have to think about that in context. That didn't happen because they're like, yeah, let's get ready for next year.
I know that.
Because of Jay Demerit retiring early.
No, I know that. That was just something that happened there, but it worked in retrospect for them.
I mean, it did work, and other teams are bringing players in just now. We'll discuss what we might want to bring in soon. Just to kind of wrap up a couple of things from this game, because there really isn't tons to talk about. Larea's goal, it was a great strike. I mean, lucky deflection. Andy Rose did let Larea get away from him. That's the only thing in that. And he just reacted a bit slow, and just Larea had just basically got away from him. So, I mean, that was the only goal of the game, Larea's strike. Now, Hassau had a couple of good saves. I thought he had a pretty good outing. Tuesday, I thought he was a little bit shaky at times. I have some concerns with him, how he comes out for collecting the ball. He spilled a couple of balls as well. But tonight he looked pretty solid. That point-blank save that he had, that was fantastic. And then the sprawling one that he tipped around for the corner as well, that was good. Otherwise, we could have been 3-0 down by that point. So I think he's growing into the position. The second half, there's nothing to talk about at all. It was just, as you said, it was like a training game. Possession in the first half was 68-32. And I think that's pretty much how it kind of finished as well. I didn't check the final things, but it was round about that figure. You're not going to do anything with that kind of possession. After the match, MDS talked about this was an improved performance. And it was. But what is lacking is glaringly obvious to everyone, Marc included, and we don't have the pieces there to address it just now. And I don't know what this team does for the rest of this year. Do you just concentrate on playing the young lads? Do you still hold out some hope of doing something? Because we're on the road technically, so we're playing away games. Are we going to focus at winning our games at home? I don't know. It's hard to see a way out of this right now.
The Whitecaps are probably they're the toughest thing because you're playing all of the games on the road to start off with, which is not good. And then so you're going to fall behind. And how are you going to catch up at that point? Like once you even if you get a string of games at home, by that time you have to almost play perfect, and that's impossible to do. So it's just a matter of getting through the season and getting it over with, and then either calling it quits or finding a location in the US once they want to open it up into the next year.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a bit. We'll take a little break just now, and we'll be back talking more Whitecaps, looking ahead to the game to come, and just some of the big talking points that's come out of the Whitecaps in the last week. So we'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Marc Dos Santos, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's tonight's song from AFTN's Artist of the Month for August, Scottish band Mogwai, with a track taken from their 7th studio album, 2011's Hardcore Will Never Die, But You Will, and that was Mexican Grand Prix. Let's get back to the Whitecaps chat now. Let's kick this part off then with some comments from the stream.
Andrew Treboniak, a.k.a. Morbs, says, I farted earlier. It smelled better than that Whitecaps performance.
A way to take the tone down, as if I hadn't done that already.
That's what I want to do at the beginning here, so you can edit it out if you want to. And then John Ward says, is it time for the owners to sell this franchise and get the Whitecaps into the CPL? Get back to actually enjoying the game.
I don't know how well this team would do in the CPL. I mean, Cavalry beat us last year.
And then the Walker said, maybe need better service to Cava, but he was just shrugging his shoulders and looked totally uninterested. On top of that, he was worse at holding the ball up when it came out of defense than Hurtado was back in the day.
But he did do that fantastic tackle on Osario 4 minutes into Tuesday's game. That was the highlight, Whitecaps' highlight of these two games was that tackle.
Yep.
I actually asked him about that on Thursday's conference call, which, for those on the podcast, I'll play the audio of that just now so you can hear it. On Tuesday's game, it felt you were kind of like on an island out there. It was hard for you to get the ball and to really get anything going. How does that suit your style of game? Because we've seen you play before, but you're not used to having to drop back so much to get the ball and try and make things happen yourself.
I mean, Toronto has a good team. They have a lot of attackers and they play well. And obviously, we spent most of the game defending. But yeah, that sort of stretches out the field for me with my team and the midfielders because, they just attacked us really well and we were just unorganized and, it was just a big mess and we have to be better. I mean, obviously the midfielders know that they need to support me, but again, we just have to focus on getting that shape again and as it was before and, it's been a while since I've been back, and I'm not going to make no excuses, but just get that team chemistry going again. We have to be really on point for tomorrow.
I was actually going to ask about that. How tough was it? I know you don't want to make excuses, but how tough was it from going to not playing for 5 months to suddenly being in a competitive game against players that have been playing down in a tournament in Orlando?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't take that as intimidation. I mean, I was anxious to play. I was excited. I was happy. Football is life for me. So, it took me a while to adjust a little bit, first part of the game, but I kind of got rhythm again towards entering the second half, and I felt better. But, now we just have to be better for Friday, no matter what.
You really clattered Jonathan 4 minutes in. It's like you said you were going to do that. You had a huge smile on your face afterwards. But, I mean, were you concerned at that point when the referee spoke to you? Because you then got a booking quite soon after that. Are you worried that your aggressive style of play might not sit well in MLS?
I mean, I guess you could say my timing was off. I was trying to adjust myself a little bit, As I said, it was hard. It took a while for me to finally adjust, but I got better. And I did stuff that I shouldn't have done. But it's just the anxiety of playing and stuff like that. My aggressiveness got out of hand, I guess. But I'll be better for next game, and I got to just watch the yellow cards, no doubt.
Did Jonathan say anything to you after the tackle? Because he didn't look very pleased in the TV.
Jonathan wanted the ref to give me a red card, but he already was scared. He already was scared that I was on the pitch against him. So he wanted me out as soon as possible.
Thanks, Cava. But fun stuff from Cava.
Especially predicting and kicking the guy before the game and then ending up kicking him. That doesn't look good. Disco will not like that.
No. But that was sadly the highlight from the two matches for me. And that kind of says it all, really.
It was hard to watch the game. Just listening to the game, especially.
Anyway, moving on to Montreal. Just like the Whitecaps are going to be doing. They fly out early on Saturday morning, heading to Montreal. Interestingly, Montreal are letting 250 fans attend this one and charging between $225 and $250 for the privilege of watching Montreal take on Vancouver. Is that not a bargain?
How much?
$225 to $250. They have to recoup their money.
$2.25?
No,
Sadly,
200. 200.
Who's going to pay $225?
It's the Whitecaps. It's Marc Dos Santos coming home to Montreal.
Oh, man.
Saputo delivers the food personally for that price.
You remember back in the USL days when Saputo used to paper the stadium by, giving out all the tickets so that stadium was full?
Yeah. Not now. You can charge a select few numpties that amount of money. It's pissed off the ultras quite considerably because obviously they're rightly pissed off that they're one of the loyal supporters, but you'd be paying so much money for that. TFC, though, managed to get some of their ultras to attend the game on Tuesday.
Well,
not officially inside.
Not the stadium.
No.
I personally want the Whitecaps. I want the Whitecaps to sell one ticket per section. Just one ticket, like a single person per section for the game. It'd be awesome on TV, don't you think? Like having one person there waving a flag.
This is the only game I'd like to see an actual wave at.
Hopefully the person doesn't block the person behind the behind section with the flag. That would be.
Yeah, Zach would be
bad.
there still getting complaints.
Imagine that one guy is in the behind section behind somebody waving a flag when there's only one person per section and he's complaining.
I know the perfect guy to put behind the flag waving.
Yeah, you could sell restricted view tickets. There will be no fans at BC Place. I asked MDS what he thought about fans coming in as well. So again, for those listening on the podcast, I'll play that audio just now. On the game at Tuesday, I mean, I was surprised when we saw that the fans were behind the goal. Did that kind of put you off? I know they were outside the stadium, but did that put you off a little bit when you heard that and you saw all the smoke? And then Montreal today announced that Tuesday's game, they're going to be allowing 250 fans to attend. Just curious what your thoughts on that are.
Michael, I've never been in any position of coaching. I always promised myself of no excuses. I'm built like that. You can't have excuses. You have to find solutions. Good for Toronto if they have that, and good for Montreal if they could have fans. We have to do our best, and I have to prepare the team to the best of our ability to be ready to play the game. Would I want us to have support and people pushing for us and making it tough on the opponent? Yes. Does it play in the subconscious of the Toronto players that, man, we're playing in a closed field and there's still guys singing outside and we hear them? Yes, for sure. But you know what? I see this year as a very challenging year. So I'm challenged by the soccer side. I'm challenged by what's happening with our team, how much work we have to do, the struggles with the COVID, and how it stopped kind of the momentum of the work we were having and going towards. I want to focus on that, for me to focus on that others have fans and that. Unfortunately, you know what? This has been such an incredible year that these little things like that don't fade me at all. but I believe they are a source of motivation, because you heard them well, for the Toronto players. For sure that they are an extra source of motivation, and probably there's going to be a certain source of motivation for the Impact players, especially when your last connection with the fans were almost 6 months ago.
I mean, MDS basically said fair play to TFC and their supporters, turning up on Tuesday, finding a way to attend, make some noise, let off the smoke, bring the atmosphere. And he said if Montreal can do it safely, he's all for it. Would he love supporters at BC plays? Yes, he would, because he feels it gives the team a lift. It's not happening, though. We're not letting people in. I put this out on Twitter as to how comfortable people would be if they were letting fans in. Before I get to some of those tweets, what about you guys? If you were able to attend, and like Steve and me could attend as media, there's a few media allowed to attend. I've already declined that option. But like Zach, if you got the chance, say there was a Willy Wonka style golden ticket, you're obviously Augustus Gloop, would you take that golden ticket and attend?
Yeah, I did attend the game in Lisbon this weekend. Yes.
Yeah, I don't find any of the MLS games that interesting. Like even the New York game that they had, I think it was yesterday or the day before.
That was pretty.
It seems like MLS teams really need people in the stands in order to do it, which amazes me how FC Dallas was so successful so many years before.
Yeah.
Michael, before you go to the thing, Norberto S. with saying, do you guys know how much the Caps franchise are really worth, and any real chance someone local could buy the Caps from Kerfoot and Co.? Just think the Caps need an MLSE ownership to change the culture.
I mean, I think you're looking at least 180 to 200 million, but I mean, you're looking at the teams, what they're coming in for just now, 300. I mean, if it's a city or an ownership group that's got no chance of getting a team through expansion, I guess you can charge them whatever they are willing to pay, which could be over 300.
I think there's two scenarios. One, and there's the one that Norberto S. is talking about, is someone who would buy them and keep them here and invest in them the way MLSE has in TFC, as an example. The other option, which is more, we all think is more likely to happen, is someone in an American city buying it so that they can relocate it to an American city.
Yeah. Once all the expansion slots have been taken up and everything. Well, I would off the top of my head, other ownership groups in the city or owners that live in the city. There's two, obviously Aquilini, the Canucks, the Orca Bay group or whatever, and the other one is I think I'm pronouncing this wrong, Tom Gagliardi. He's the Dallas Stars owner, but he's local in Vancouver, and I've heard rumors that he might be interested, but there are rumors only because Aquilini showed support, and so everybody put them in there too, because back when the Canucks were for sale, those two were trying to get the Canucks at the same time.
Here's the thing. I can't remember how much we've talked about this in the past. I know Jeff Mallett is fond of talking about how he wants to hand this down to his children and blah, 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 but that's all an affront to the fact that they have tried to sell. They just haven't found someone who values it as much as they think they should.
Yeah,
or they haven't found anyone actually willing to buy, period. So when you hear someone saying, "Oh no, we're going to give this to our kids," remember that there's the side of that that is trying to protect the asset and the value of it, right? Because you don't.
Even though we've said in the past that MLS really doesn't care about Canada, I don't think also they probably put it, if they're going to sell it, it has to stay in Vancouver for a while because they don't want to look bad selling it right away and moving it immediately. So it's going to be similar to what the Grizzlies, where they sold it to that guy and he kept it here for a couple of years, then moved it to Memphis.
Yeah, and then they still bring the jerseys out every now and again.
Yeah.
Oh, Michael, also, yeah. Oh, man. Also, John O'Flynn wants you to know that he's watching us instead of watching the ice hockey.
Oh, thank you, John. Always a big supporter of the show. I appreciate that. Vancouver is a market that has a lot of potential. If you invest properly in it, the support is there to come out and support this team. If you're looking at cities that might miss out on expansion, they would maybe be interested in a team. If Phoenix don't get in, Phoenix's ownership group is very strong. You've got Drogba as part of that. And I'm pretty sure if they didn't get in this expansion round, they'll be chomping at the bit to somehow get a team.
You also got Landy Cakes in San Diego.
Mm.
I personally like San Diego, so I don't mind that. But I wouldn't.
I'd still fancy another team in Oregon down the coast, Newport County. That would be my preferred choice. Anyway, let's get to the tweets about attending games. The majority of the replies were no, they wouldn't respond. So I won't read them all, but it's things like Dental Dalmatian said, I think it's insanely irresponsible, but Crash Carivo says, for Montreal's point of view, 250 fans in a 20,000 seat outdoor stadium seems pretty reasonable. That being said, I can see the stadium from my apartment as in BC Place, and I'll still be watching the game on TV. Ben Cooper Whitecat said it's still an unnecessary risk, but with that low of a number being admitted, he'd be tempted to go to a game at BC Place. C. Galitsky said, what is the gain in letting fans in compared to the possible consequence? And I think that is a big talking point. It's like, how much do you gain from letting that amount, a small amount of fans in, to what could go wrong? Kevin Gilmore, the general manager, CEO of Montreal, said, look, we want to get fans back in at the games. We have to start somewhere. This is us starting somewhere to see if this can work and we can expand it. But risk v reward?
Yeah, the only thing is they have to make sure that they control the people. Like 250 is fine in a big stadium, but are they going to funnel people out at different times? Are they going to let in people at different times? You can't let in like 250 people at once, and you can't make sure 250 people don't go back all at once too, and washrooms and everything like that. So you got to be careful about when people get herded around.
Well, also, the Impact said that there will be exceptional sanitary measures in place at the stadium, which must be a huge shock to people from Montreal. But, I mean, they'll get used to it, I'm sure. They tried it in Cowdenbeath, didn't go down very well there. Rod Hodkinson. I was going to go further with that, but I thought, no, it's different times. Different times.
Good call.
Yeah. We're not in Swangard anymore, Dorothy. Rod Hodkinson said, it's irresponsible, regardless of the measures. You're putting your trust in people to do the right thing. He wouldn't go. 250? Why bother? The risk is too great. From Clive, you might know him. Red Hot coach, certain ex-Whitecaps father. He says, Good on Montreal. Moving forward, taking precautions, and not living in baseless fear and paranoia like most are. Taylor D.
What I know of Clive.
Yeah. Taylor D. Brendenhoff said, open things up. You could easily socially distance 1,000 people in BC Place. That's about 2% of the seating capacity. So that plays into Steve's plan of just having one person in each section. I would love to see a wave in that. That would be superb. Or a Whitecaps chant. Some guy going, White! And the guy, sorry, what was that? I said, White! Shite! Yeah, it's shite. Caps! Yeah, it's definitely crap. Oh, the fun you could have with this. Last thing I'll read. There was tons of sort of replies, so sorry that I haven't got to all this. Oh, actually, two I'll read. Chris Doyle, he raised a very good point that I had hoped someone was going to raise on the Montreal call. I couldn't be on the call because I was doing my East 5 podcast. How many support staff is going to be needed for 250 people? Because then you're bringing more people in to the bubble, and then it's like how many people, security, cleaning staff, concessions people. They are going to provide packed lunches, which I was just picturing like Millhouse for some reason and The Simpsons, just getting a packed lunch. But, I mean, there is that. But, yeah, the more people you let in, the more expense the club has because they've got more cleaning, they've got more staff to try and look after all this as well. So I understand you have to start somewhere. This just seems, I don't know, it just seems kind of pointless.
So your $250 comes with a packed lunch?
Yes.
Lunchables.
VWFC All Caps actually said, for that price, does it include a Thierry Henry meet and greet?
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
I figured there'd be some kind of social distance conversation with TT.
Yeah, he could just stand in the center of the pitch and just with a big microphone.
Oh, talking of that, I missed this on Tuesday because I was only watching stuff with half an eye because it was so shit. I didn't even bother doing the match report after the game and putting it up. But I noticed it tonight, because again, I wasn't really looking, and Caitlin's like, have you seen how far away Mark is from Christian Jack? When they were doing the interviews. Yeah. I don't know if that was like the protocol, or if Mark just didn't really want to speak to Christian after his pre-game chat with him on Tuesday or not.
Stop it. Come on. Morbital says the Whitecaps couldn't even draw one fan per section.
How many sections is there? 250 or 260, 70?
254, if it's true on the bottom, yeah.
Anyway, let's move on from that. I think we've kind of covered that fully. Now, Tuesday's game against Montreal will be the first opportunity for the Whitecaps to go up against new Impact head coach Thierry Henry. Henry had a conference call on Monday morning, so I'm going to bring you part of the English part of it just now, just as he looks ahead to the game in Vancouver and just getting back into action on the pitch.
Last week, we were talking with Kevin Gilmore about why he was deciding to open up the stadium. And it sounds like there is a significant cost to the team doing this. But when I asked him just about if there was, why do it, he said, well, 250 fans is more of a home field advantage than 0 fans. I'd just like to get your opinion on what can 250 fans actually do for your guys? Is this going to be an advantage for your team?
It's going to make it less empty. And obviously, like I said, it's one person more than being empty, or 250 that are going to try and push you. Obviously, better than not having everyone there. But in Orlando, the Timbers didn't have anyone there, and they still managed to win the tournament. So it doesn't really, in a bigger scale, change a lot. But does it make it better? Of course it does make it better, because the guys are going to support us and push us until the end, although they're going to be 250. But that doesn't mean if there is nobody in the stadium that you shouldn't perform. That's what I meant by what I said before. And so for me as a player, it will not, it's better to have fans, don't get me wrong. But if there is no fans, then you still have to perform, as you saw in the final of the Champions League, semi-final of the Champions League. Obviously, the directors were in the box, the players, people that traveled, but no fans. So you still have to perform because you have a job to do. Does it make it better? Yeah, we like to think so, because the guy should encourage us.
We know the circumstances that your team was facing after the layoff heading into Orlando. You've now had a similar layoff with just practices and no games. Vancouver, of course, has played twice already. What can you as the manager do to ensure that the intensity, the outcome is just different this time?
Well, what's difficult is, as you know, nothing beats a game. A game will prepare you the best, but you need to also be prepared to play a game. That's why I feel for Vancouver and Toronto that I had to play, especially for Vancouver, because they had to travel all the way there across. I'm sure it wasn't that easy as we saw, but anyway, anyhow, we need to find a way. The game always will give you the best answer that you need to know about your team. Having saying that, sorry, we had a couple of days to prepare the game against Vancouver that allowed us to have some hard training session to make sure that our guys are going to be fitter tomorrow. But I cannot talk about, obviously, about Vancouver, because it must have been difficult for them, also for Toronto, but Vancouver was traveling on top of everything. So I felt kind of sorry that they had to deal with that, but we have to deal with what we have to deal with. I'm sure they're going to make the game very difficult for us, and so we have to find ways to make sure that we can open them up.
These round of games, there's a little bit of added spice to it, because it's not just MLS points that's on the line. Whoever gets the most, you're obviously going to be playing off in the Canadian Championship final. Just maybe talk a little bit of what motivation that is to yourself and the club, and the chance to get into next year's Champion League.
Well, it is what it is. We didn't know it was going to be that way. Once again, we have to adapt. Obviously, as you saw, Toronto are ahead now. We need to try to catch them back. Not forgetting about Vancouver, don't get me wrong, but it is the way that you can go, obviously, into the Champions League on our side. So we're gonna have to deal with that. But as you said, at the end of the day, yes, 3 points, but 3 points also for what you just mentioned. but they are 3 points. Either way, we want them, even if it's for the to go to the final or to obviously get the 3 points because we need those 3 points and not stay in that little melee that you have in the table right now. You can see that Columbus and Toronto are flying away, and then there is a pack behind, and so we need to make sure that we can stay with them first and foremost. But yeah, it is a double bill because he has a double impact.
Montreal Impact's Thierry Henry there, talking about the Whitecaps game on Tuesday and a few other things about getting back to play. Certainly sounds like he has been watching the first 2 Whitecaps games against TFC quite closely, knowing that he's going to have to try and break down the Whitecaps. I don't see the Whitecaps really coming out all guns blazing for this one. I think it's going to be another one of just trying to hold Montreal at bay and seeing what they can pick up in the counter. But I think it's going to be another tough outing for the Whitecaps on Tuesday. Let's just see how all this plays out. We'll be back with more Whitecaps chat and answering some of your questions from the YouTube chat, and we're going to return with all of that after this.
Hi, this is Andy Rose, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
I read about a fan in South Beach 23. I thought it meant me. Riding around on a 68 bus. I thought it was us. I phoned Steve Lamack and said, who do you mean? He said, Carter, the unstoppable sex machine. I asked John Feaster, where is the scene? He said, Carter, the unstoppable sex machine. Carter, the unstoppable sex machine. Well, I must check these guys out. And here we are again in 1992. Is there anything new to see, hear or do? To guys and a beatbox on top of the pops. It's happened for them, it never happened for us. And if we came up with such torturous rhymes, we'd be Carter, the unstoppable sex machine. If we wrote such songs, we'd have to come clean and join Carter, the unstoppable sex machine. Carter, the unstoppable sex machine.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part is the first of tonight's 3 of a kind songs from a band we've featured several times in Wavelength. That was I Ludacris with a song called They're Unstoppable, taken from their 1992 album Idiot Savants. You can also find it on their Greatest Hits album 20 Years in Show Business. And like I mentioned, that was the first song of tonight's 3 of a kind. For any new listeners, or just those of you that need a refresher, at the starts of parts 3, 4 and 5, we're going to play 3 songs that are connected in some way. 3 of a kind. Your task over the next couple of parts is to try and work out what that link might be. And if you're clever enough to get it after the first 2 links, have a guess or your own suggestion as to what song could kick off part 5. We've started things off this week with I Ludacris. We'll be back with another one to kick off part 4. Let's get into some other Whitecaps chat that I've kind of jotted some notes down here to talk about. So let's talk first of all about a player that has moved on. I covered it when I did the solo show last week. Haven't had your guys' thoughts on it. Inbeom Hwang, he's gone off to Russia. He's doing interviews in English now, which was kind of more than he was doing when he was here. General thoughts on Inbeom's time here. I tweeted that I thought he was a bit of a flop. I wasn't as harsh in last week's show. I don't think he was a success here. I don't doubt that he's a good player at all. I think he is a good player. He's shown that internationally. You don't do what he's done and be sought after by clubs in Europe if you're not a good player. I just don't think he was a fit for the Whitecaps. I don't think he was a fit for MLS. And I don't think he was the kind of DP that we needed, and he didn't have the players around him that could bring the best out of him.
I think their last point is the best one. I think that he didn't have the right player around him. I just think you just need one other player around him to be more effective. And I think he was miscast. That was the biggest thing. He was not in, whether it's miscast for MLS or miscast for the way what MDS wants to play. I'm not sure which one it is. I thought, looking back on it, and I'm just speculating, I haven't heard anything, I'm just thinking this might be the case. Maybe they just saw an opportunity to resell at a higher value, which they did, which kudos to them, they did that. But maybe they didn't see him, as a fit, and they just saw him as an opportunity where they could bring him in, play him for a year, and then get him off, and then recoup the money back and maybe make a profit off him.
It's a very different case, but in one way it reminds me a little bit of Julian de Guzman going to TFC, where you're bringing in this holding midfielder on this huge salary for TFC. It was over $2 million, which brought with the DP tag, with it huge expectations that they would see like some of the best of what they saw from him playing, in the Canadian men's national team and a little bit of Deportivo La Coruña, in Hanover before that. He's not that kind of player, really, especially with the people, like you said, with Inbeom that he had around him. And so I feel bad for him in that sense. I feel like the expectations that come with a DP tag and stuff were maybe not always fair to him. But I don't think they brought him in just to make money off of him. I think they did. That was one of their goals. But I didn't think they're like, oh, let's just bring him in, and even though he's maybe not what we need or whatever. I think MDS really thought he could contribute, but they weren't able to either get to other pieces or to get things to work right with limited resources they had to get the best out of him.
It's just a thought that popped in my head that maybe they weren't even looking, because just based on how we performed in the system.
No, but these people don't spend $1.8 million on a player that they don't think that. Yeah,
you're probably right.
Yeah, so but they are extremely happy. Like internally, they are like extremely happy that they're making money off of this. The sad thing is, Michael would say cock-a-hoop. That's right. The sad thing, or perhaps the pathetic thing, is that they are not going to be investing that money into the next player or to other players to both replace him and maybe more importantly to make the team better, the squad better, and to get better results. That's the hard thing. Now I know there's a pandemic and all that kind of stuff that you could list as excuses, but it's totally unacceptable. And people who care about this football club should be extremely frustrated about how this is playing out and what they're doing with this, and they should demand that they be told what is the plan, what is going to be done with the profits from this. Because you remember, this only happened because of the Alphonso Davies sale. So now if they're just going to, spend some of it on this player, make money off that, and then not invest that, that's not really living out what they said about the Alphonso Davies money.
Yeah. If the one thing is imagine he actually played well. Imagine what they could have got for him.
Oh, yeah.
If they're happy right now what they got for him, imagine what they could have got. And then the other thing is if they're not going to invest in a player, invest it in a mutual fund over like a short term, and try to get when you pull it out, you can maybe have more money to invest in a better player when they're ready to do that.
Steve, the owners are doing that. It's just not for the club's benefit.
The AFTN Mutual Fund, if anyone from the club wants to get in touch, we can strike a deal. It will be invested in McVitie's chocolate digestives. Not the company, just me buying quite a lot of chocolate digestives, really. But I think we can pretty much be certain that the Whitecaps are not going to spend more than they've made in this. They're not going to be in a worse position financially. They should spend more. They should use this money, add more money to it, and bring in a top talent. But they're not going to want to do that. They're not going to want to say, oh, we had a player, and then we've made a profit on that, but now we're actually worse off because we've spent more than we made from him. But to improve this team, they're going to need to spend money, or somehow find this magical diamond in the rough that we've been trying to find every single year, and we just haven't found it. Because it's the same old. Again, we're in a rebuilding process, it feels. It's like it's rebuild after rebuild after rebuild. It's kind of feeling that the Whitecaps are the Winchester Mystery House of Major League Soccer. It's just constant building, but it never gets anywhere.
They just need to get that foundation right initially. They haven't done that, I don't think, yet, and they need stronger pillars. If they get stronger pillars, then you can have that foundation solid.
Yeah, but the pillars need to be the owners and those giving vision to everything. But yeah, I know you're making fun of their pillars, but some people. I was reading some people's comments today or whatever, but they're basically saying, can you even call this a rebuild if you haven't actually built something first?
That is very true. It's like you're building a house on quicksand. So you're just starting to get up, and then it's just going back down. Then you're going up, and it's going back down.
A sinkhole would be, yeah. Like it's amazing how, I think the closest they got was I think 2016 or 2015 or something like that. I think that was the closest they got to actually looking like they were going to do something, and then it slowly crapped out at that point.
I still say we could have won the MLS Cup in 2015. With that squad we had, if we'd approached the Portland game differently, we could have had an MLS Cup. And then this whole club would be so different right now because you'd be wanting to attract players to it. I don't know what player, especially within MLS, because for me, if it's going to be 8 to 10 weeks before a player from overseas comes in, you maybe want to get a guy that's already in North America. Yeah, they'd have to quarantine for the 2 weeks, but if you can get them in now, they're going to be ready pretty soonish. We've got trade bait. Let's look at Fredy Montero. He has not gone on this trip out east, and it was technical decision. That was what's been said. It was Marc said he just wanted to focus on the younger players, and he didn't feel that with what he was needing from the team, Fredy would give that. Now, like him or loathe him from what he did with Seattle before or whatever, he's a guy that knows this league. He's a guy that scores goals, and he showed it at the end of last season when he was coming on as a sub. I do feel he can offer a lot to this team. But if you're not bringing him out on a trip like this, when there's Canadian Championship points on the line, never mind MLS points, because Marc really wants to be in the Champions League and win a trophy with the Whitecaps in the Voyageurs Cup. So if you're going all out for that, you bring your best players, and Fredy is one of those guys. So if you're not bringing him, and it's for a technical decision and it's not for a trade, which I don't believe for a minute, because I think there is some trade stuff in the works. I mean, what does that say about his future?
He's got no future here, basically. He's no longer the guy with the 2-year contract. It's basically over at the end of this year. So I think he's done. He's basically done. I don't know where he would go. Maybe he's just going to retire. I don't see him going. No. I think somebody mentioned he might go to Colombia. I don't see him going abroad anywhere. Either. And he's definitely not going to Portugal, even though the passports were, they got the passports.
His stock is really high. I still think, in parts of MLS. And you've got expansion teams coming in that would, like Austin next year, add a veteran like Fredy Montero to them now or something. But then he might want to only go to Seattle. I know you might not have a lot of say in MLS, depending on what his contract says. But then I was looking at Seattle and I thought, I know this is like going back 3-4 years, and I've kind of done this one to death in my pre-Johnny Russell loving days. Will Bruin. You could swap Fredy for Will Bruin. It's kind of a like for like, but I think you'd get more out of Will Bruin than what we're getting from Fredy.
I would honestly I would unload him just to get his salary off the books, and hopefully. And although I'm sure as soon as I say this, Zach's going to start shaking his head, the Whitecaps will spend that salary spot somewhere else, on somebody else, and bring him in from abroad or anywhere at this point. So I don't need a player back. I would like to see him off the roster.
I still remember when Carl Robinson told me that the Colombian was coming. I was in the locker room in Portland at the preseason tournament. He took me aside and said, I got to tell you something. And I was extremely disappointed for, the reasons we've talked about in the past. And as much as I didn't like that, I think he made a contribution in his first spell in Vancouver that, even though I don't like it, he did do some things. I think his second spell in Vancouver has been a huge mistake, like a very, very, very significant and costly mistake, both on the field, off the field, financially. I don't think it was the right thing to do at all. And I think the sooner he goes, the better for him. I think the better for the Whitecaps. And the questions will all be around what do they do with that spot and how do they allocate those funds. And they're obviously, it's hard to trust them to do the right thing with those things right now, but they need to do something.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Whitecaps squad and you look at players that they're our elite, let's put it that way. They're maybe not elite to some of the other clubs, but to us, these are our elite guys. So you're looking at Fredy Montero, MLS veteran, not playing just now. Inbeom Hwang didn't do that well here. He's now left. Ali Adnan, great at times. Tonight, didn't really notice him too much on the pitch. He seemed very pissed off on Tuesday, was shouting a lot at various teammates. His best friend was Inbeom Hwang. There was lots of rumours in the off-season that he wanted to go back to Europe. It looked from photographs that Ali's agent was also over in Russia with Inbeom as well. So does Inbeom say, oh, there's a really good left-back at the Whitecaps, he's an international. Is Ali the next one out? So you could be losing him as well. Then your rebuild is starting to look massive. And then you factor in Yordy Reyna, whose future at the club has to really be in doubt now. We have thought that in the past with other things, but we've known Marc Dos Santos for a while. Before MLS, going back to Montreal days. We've talked to people that know MDS. He does not suffer fools. And I can't see any scenario in which Reyna is here next year.
I think he's spiked his chances for the coming back next year.
He might not even make it to the end of this season.
They're absolutely nil at this point, so I don't see it happening. You're right. It might not even continue on. They might just mutually buy him out or let him go or terminate the contract or something like that.
He's got so much trade value because of what he can do. Like, well, with what he can do, because we've seen it. The problem is he's not consistent enough. And is that on the player or is that on the team and those around him that's not helping him be consistent enough?
Or the combination of those two things.
Yeah, because a lot of it is always going to be on the player. So I put out after all this news broke before the game, I put out a tweet saying, let's play some pre-game Football Manager. If the Caps were to package Reyna and Montero together, trying to get a trade deal, 1, do you think there would be interest? 2, who would it be from? And 3, what would we get back in return? So you guys think about that. I'll read you some of the answers that we had. Angus Walker said, yep, there would be interest, but it would be from Burton Albion for a bag of chips. Spiceboy 1, Reyna and the Colombian for Boxall and Musa. So I'm not sure Minnesota would want to give them out. And considering Boxall I think is a better player than what he was at the Whitecaps. If you said to me, we're going to bring Boxall back in a trade to get rid of Montero and Reyna, I'd be like, sorry, what now? But maybe.
I would say that a couple of teams that probably would be interested, maybe like a Cincinnati, because they like their former Whitecaps, or like a Nashville, who probably looking for scoring and everything like that within MLS. So I think those are probably the more like teams. Like Inter Miami is another team, but I don't think they're looking within MLS. I think they're look abroad for people.
You also have to think as well, though, Zach, like Reyna's, let's just call them issues. They're going to be well known amongst other managers. So you're going to, if you look around the league, say a guy like Adrian Heath, he's not going to put up with Reyna's shit. So that rules them out altogether at Minnesota. You've got like Caleb Porter. It's like he might think, Reyna's a good player. I'm not putting up with that shit. Or does it need a strong manager to make him not do these stupid things that he seems to do?
Yeah. It's interesting to see, who... I think some people kind of used to see Carl Robinson as a bit of the sort of Sam Allardyce. Sam Allardyce was famous for a while there in the Premier League of bringing all these players who've had difficult experiences into Bolton and getting the best out of them, or getting them really good out of them before they moved on somewhere else and kind of restarted their careers or whatever. I don't know really who does that in MLS now, but I don't know. With Reyna, I was thinking maybe someone like, I don't think the Colombians would fit there, but would there be, and I know they have other attacking weapons and options, but could someone like Bruce Arena, again, he doesn't suffer fools lightly either.
Yeah.
But is he someone who could turn the switch for Yordy, if you will, to get him to become more of a consistent player because of his coaching style, his man management, his experience in the game, his experience in MLS, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, Reyna's got skill. I mean, you don't make it into the Peruvian national team if you're not a skillful player, because there's a lot of competition. It's just he maybe needs to be in the right environment. This is not the right environment. It just always feels that there's just something going on with him that's distracting him from being the player that he could be.
Yeah, he seems off all the time. Like, he has moments. Like in Orlando, I thought he played pretty well, considering. But he always has these periods where he disappears. Who's the player that used to do that a lot too? Christian Teixeira. Christian Teixeira used to do that quite a bit, where he would show a lot, and then all of a sudden, for a period, he would be a non-factor completely.
Well, something that's similar about them both, which actually Noberto S. talks about this in the comments, is both those players I think are really, even though they're both quick and good in the counter, they're both players that I think value possession game. So when you think around MLS, who has a good possession game? With someone like
anybody who plays the Whitecaps.
Oh yeah, I mean, but no, with someone like LAFC, who are good in possession, but also really quick and can be direct in their attack. With somewhere like that, be a fit.
And Andy Rose can talk up Reyna too, Bob Bradley too.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, that ties in with Joe Deasy, who said on Football Manager, if you offer all your draft picks, LAFC will usually give you Vela. So let's offer draft picks, Reyna and Montero, and maybe we can get Vela and Rossi. Done deal. But you've got other people as well saying that they'd be happy just to get shot of them just for draft picks and just GAM and TAM. And I mean, Glass City made a good point, which was just get all the GAM just now from a club like Austin, who's coming in, they're rolling in it. Get your GAM. Don't necessarily spend it this year. Maybe use a little bit of stuff to bring in some CPL players after the CPL tournament because they're already in Canada, so there's no quarantine. Does no harm because this season's a bust. I might be wrong. I'll eat my words if that is the case. Maybe Marc will turn things around and we're going to have an amazing run-in when we play out of Portland. If they can avoid all the riots and all the kind of smoke that's going about and kind of concentrate on the games. That is a whole topic for another day because that's a bizarre choice of place to go. I know why they're going, but with everything that's going on there, why do you think your players are going to want to go and play out of Portland? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked.
They should go to a place like Montana where there's open spaces and everything. They could create a stadium there probably in a couple of weeks.
In all seriousness, Bellingham, because you've got the stadium there, because I went down and watched Bellingham United play some games there. Fans aren't coming in anyway. There's an airport there for the charter flights to land at. To me, that just makes total sense.
TV would be the big factor there, whether they can perform a TV broadcast. That would be the only factor, I think.
I think you probably could, though, because they've had big events there, and Bellingham streamed their games on YouTube. We could get Nathan just holding his camera phone up, and then we could do commentary for it. So let's just call the Whitecaps chat. Let's bring it to an end just now. There was more I was going to talk about, just regarding fans on MDS and stuff. We'll get the Montreal game out of the way, and we'll talk about maybe some stuff like that next week. Before we move on, just to go through some more of the chats here. I don't think you read this one earlier. John Ward said, I don't need a pandemic to stop me going to BC Place to watch the Whitecaps. That made me laugh. But he also said, if the CFL and in turn BC Lions fold, would the Whitecaps be able to get out of the BC Place contract and find a new location, i.e. UBC? Whitecaps need their own smaller compact stadium.
I agree with that, but I think if say the Lions or CFL fold, which I don't think they will, because I do think the only reason they didn't put it up because the owners didn't want to play this year. But I think if they fold, let's say the Whitecaps are the only tenants, BC Place is not going to let them out of it. They're going to actually hold on to them even harder and try to incentivize them to stay there.
Yeah. Also, UBC would not be the place for a stadium. It's like trying to find the ideal place. You want somewhere maybe that isn't downtown, but not too far away. New West. That sounds like a great place to build a stadium. Just some other messages in the chat. Norbertos said, Tim Lewicki changed MLSE's mindset on how to make TFC successful. They brought in Bradley, Gio. TFC used to be the laughingstock of Canadian MLS teams. They were. We had so much fun at their expense. But now look at where they are, and now look who's laughing, basically. It's like, compared to the Caps, it just shows you that it's easy to turn a team round in this league. And you only even have to look at what Oscar Pereira is doing down in Orlando just now. He's kind of turned that team around, and they were a laughingstock, and now I know they were kind of on home turf, so to speak, at their own tournament, but they've played some nice football, and it'll be interesting to see now what they're doing in the return of the actual league. But again, he seems to have turned them around. So,
Michael, I commented there, and I'm sure I told you this, and I don't know if we talked about it on the show at the time, but someone in and around that time when like Wiki was turning around TFC, someone within the Whitecaps front office said to me, or maybe it was even after his time, after he was gone from there, but said to me, Tim Lewicki is the kind of visionary leader that the Vancouver Whitecaps need. Someone who has a vision for making the club quality and moving it forward and letting it be all that it can be. That's what we need here. That has not happened. I think Mark Panis was the closest.
Yeah, it sounds like they were going for somebody, but then decided not to keep him.
But it sounds like Axel is more like the status quo. The more and more I hear him talk and hear his interviews and hear him talk about his approach, it sounds more and more like it fits in with Bobby, Rachel, Greg Anderson, Greg Kerfoot, and Jeff Mallett with who they are, what they've done, and what they want, which is really, really, really unfortunate.
Well, it was interesting to hear Pete Shad, as I mentioned earlier on TSN this morning. He said for him that the jury's still out on Axel. And for like Pete to come out and say that is, you don't kind of always expect him to kind of just be as critical as that. But it was a very critical little section he had on the Whitecaps. But he's not sure that Axel's doing what the Whitecaps are really needing.
Yeah, right now there's because even like you're talking about Inbeom Hwang, the transfer came all of a sudden, and they probably didn't have enough time to replace him. But honestly, these transfers don't happen. Rarely they happen all of a sudden. They have an inkling that this is going to happen over a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So
he wanted to play in Europe. He made it very clear he wanted to play in Europe.
So they should have had a target ready to go, or 2 or 3 targets ready to go whenever there was an offer from Hwang. And so they should have been ready to pull the trigger if they need to, because anybody who watches this team knows that they have issues in the midfield with Inbeom in the midfield. Imagine taking him out. And like I think you jokingly commented during the game on Tuesday was Inbeom maybe more important than we realized because they went down 3-0.
Well, but that's part of the whole thing with Inbeom. It was, we didn't talk about this before, but the whole thing was it felt like it was set up to be like a 2-year or 2.5-year or whatever stint here, because he was brought in as a young designated player. And by some of the sounds of it, they never had any plan whatsoever to keep him here longer than that, when they'd have to pay down more of his salary. So it's surprising that they didn't, in one sense, maybe it's surprising that they didn't get more for him.
I just realised I missed an opportunity to run a headline of Hwang out.
Yeah.
That's not like me.
I was shocked that you could have used a lot of headlines for that.
I loved when Michael Cox played for Edmonton. The fun I had on Twitter with that when we played them in the Voyagers Cup. Anyway, back to some more messages here. Norberto's also said he can see Reyna going to play for a Liga MX team, which I could see that as well. He kind of fits that. He plays for Peru. That kind of helps his resume. Matt Johnson says he missed the Reyna chat earlier, but he says, what is his position? He's not a 9. He's not a false 9. He's not a 10. He's not a winger. He's got talent, but what is he? That's a good question.
He's a secondary striker for me. Like he's a guy that can play. He needs to play in a 2-man front, and with either a target guy or either any kind of other striker, but he needs to play in a 2-man front.
And I just said this in the comments as well. I agree with you. His best position is as a second striker, where he has the freedom to play in behind, off of a main striker or around a main striker. I think he's probably better with someone who's both bigger, stronger, physical, but also good technically. And so in terms of, Matt asked where that could fit in New England with Bruce Arena, I think they have some players that he could partner really well with, but that might mess up what they're doing right now.
Actually, I know there's probably not a position in soccer. I think he's a roamer. Basically, he needs to be able to. He needs to have basically no defensive responsibilities and to be able to go wherever he needs to go in order to pick up the ball and run with it.
But that's the thing in the modern game, you can't have players like that. Like in MLS, you can't have passengers.
No,
because
especially defensively.
Yeah, because even when you have one, that means that everyone else is having to make up for that. I've referenced this conversation years ago with Tater talking about Davide Cumento. And Davide, in the ideal world, would be a guy you give some freedom to in terms of defensive responsibility so that he can be even more creative going forward. But the problem is when you do that in MLS, you put so much burden on your other players, especially if you're also having a center forward who's in a similar boat. So then you have two players, right? So that was always one of the problems for Davide in his time in Vancouver.
Yeah, Cumiento was best when the other team was one man down. That's essentially the best time to bring him on.
Or he got to play, out wide with Adrian Kahn at fullback.
Exactly.
The last thing which we'll read out here, which was a tweet from CD Pryor, who it was in reply to like what we could get back for Montero or Reyna or whatever. So he said, how about Reyna and Montero plus Gam to Sporting Kansas City for Johnny Russell? Doesn't that sound like a fair deal, lads?
No, Kansas City will never go for that.
That's it for our sort of chats and everyone. Thank you for everyone that has sent messages, and hi to Drew Shaw, who's watching from Prince George. He's looking forward to seeing Ben Fisk back in Victoria next year where he belongs. I was sad to see him go, but yeah. We're going to move on to talking some Canadian action next. CPL. We'll be back chatting about that after this.
Hi, I'm Kevin Alaman. You're listening to the AFTN radio.
So many bands are just putting it on. Why can't they be the same as their songs? I can't help it, I'm so naive. Another record with my heart on the sleeve. Is he as cool as he writes them? Not always, and I hold that against him. I can't believe I've only just discovered the Replacements. How have I only just found out about the Replacements? Some of them are nearly as old as my parents. How have I only just discovered the Replacements?
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's the second of tonight's 3 of a Kind selection from former AFTN Artist of the Month, Art Brut. That was a song called The Replacements, taken from their 2009 album Art Brut vs. Satan. Coincidentally, a pastiche of the famous Mogwai song, Mogwai vs. Satan. And like I mentioned, that was the second of tonight's 3 of a Kind songs, following on from I, Ludacris, with They're Unstoppable, kicking off part 3. Have you worked out what the link is this week? If you have, what do you think the next song could be that kicks off part 5? And if you haven't worked it out yet, see if you can get it from the song that does kick off the next part. Anyway, let's get back to the football chat now, and let's turn our attentions away from the Whitecaps and MLS and into the Canadian Premier League and the Island Games. So, we're just over a week into the Island Games. What's your initial thoughts on it? I gave some thoughts on it on last week's show. Zach, first of all, how much have you been watching? What have you thought of the action so far?
Honestly, I have not watched that much. I've seen, I think, at least 2 full games live. And then I've watched
number 2 is very important.
I've watched highlights of many of them, most of them. Again, I like, for the most part, I think like last year, I'm encouraged. Like, there's been some good play. There's been some really exciting goals. There's been, I know there's lots of jokes about the penalties and VAR and, some decisions and whatnot, but all in all, I think it's been pretty exciting and engaging.
Yeah, the people have been putting a full effort out there. There's definitely no like training session going on like other people have. It was great to see Busto score a goal. Hopefully, kind of wish there was a winner, but it ended up being a draw there.
And Zach Verhoeven in the same game.
Yeah, that was another fantastic goal. Did you pronounce it correctly?
Pa's reaction on the bench as well was tremendous.
Yeah. I mentioned in our chat that they should just have an ISO cam on Pa the whole game, and that would sell tickets there.
How can you not love Pa?
The one thing about this tournament, and I know obviously they have to do it because of COVID, but it would have been nice, like last year, instead of having a full season, to do the tournament like this instead. That way they kind of get everything going, and then this year they would have launched this actual season. But I think the tournament's working really well for them. Because it's definitely cost, and it's amazing that the CPL is able to put this on. Yet a league that has had long history has basically canceled their season because they couldn't afford it, like the CFL. It's like, but the CPL, good on them to find a solution. They got some games on. They're going to get a season. They're going to get a champion this year. There's something MLS should have done, where instead of doing this tournament and actually starting it, they should have just ended it right there and handed the trophy to whoever won that.
But Steve, also there's a pretty significant difference in cost involved in making those 2 weeks.
And salaries as well, because there's so many folk in the CPL that's making less than 15,000.
Yeah, so, I understand that, but still, relatively to a new league doing able to pull this off, and a league that's been around for a long time, it's amazing.
Oh, I know. I think the tournament has been a fantastic success, and I always thought it would be. It's going to be a shame for the 4 teams that basically go out at the end of phase 1, because that's their season. 7 games, and they're going to be gone, and then that's it until next April. So, I mean, that's tough when you've put so much effort into getting ready for the season.
Yeah, I mean, and there's been like exciting games with late equalizers, and it's been really, really, really encouraging. And the fact that everyone's still in it, I mean, I know we're still early, but everyone still feels alive and like they have a chance and are hopeful is huge. And I think for a lot of the fans, people who were engaged in season 1, this feels like quite the opposite of what happened last year.
Let's just have a look at some of the latest happenings over the weekend. And there was certainly a lot of drama, and especially late drama, in some of the games that were played. Pamadukas Pacific FC went down to a heartbreaking 2-1 defeat to Forge on Saturday afternoon. They went behind, fought back to level up in the first half at 1-1, into second half stoppage time, pushing forward, had a great chance to tie things up. And you thought, well, at least they've taken a point off the defending champions, but Forge go up the pitch, Captain Kyle Becker puts away a chance in the 97th minute, giving all 3 points to Forge, temporarily putting them top of the standings and leaving Pacific FC heartbroken. But Pamadukas spoke after the game about how he was proud of his players' fighting spirit and that they went toe-to-toe with the defending champs, so he took a lot from the game. And there was certainly more late drama on Sunday. Atletico Ottawa 2-0 up after the first 16 minutes. That was how it stayed until the 88th minute, when up popped Kevin Alleman for his first goal for FC Edmonton to give them hopes that they could do something. 3 minutes later, Easton Ongaro pokes it home from the goal line after some fantastic work by former Whitecap Anthony Caceres. Wow, what a fight back from FC Edmonton. They could have won it as well in the rest of stoppage time, but settling for a 2-2 draw. And what that will do for the confidence of Jeff Powless's team on what was a very emotional night after losing the club's first ever captain Chris Cooey to cancer just a few hours before the game had kicked off. And yeah, keeps him right in the hunt. Halifax went down to a 2-1 defeat to Cavalry later on Sunday night. Cavalry were pretty much in control of that. Halifax pulled a goal back with a penalty into stoppage time. But I mean, those results leave the standings like incredible. Cavalry and Forge have played 4 games each. They're the top 2. The other 6 teams all played 3 matches. 3 points separating Valour in 3rd to Edmonton in 8th. The top 4 advance into the Phase 2 of the Island Games tournament. All to play for in the coming days, and it's going to make for a very, very exciting end to the Phase 1 festivities. And there's some big matches coming up this week as well, and you could see some teams maybe slightly pull away from the pack this week and some just drop off and their hopes fade. But there's been so many draws so far that every team is basically in with a realistic chance of making the top 4 and moving on to Phase 2. Couple of big matches coming up this week. On Tuesday you've got Pacific FC versus Valour. Valour are sitting 3rd, Pacific are 6th, but a win for Pacific moves them above Valour in the standings. York 9 face a tricky one against Forge on Wednesday. A big one on Wednesday night though, Edmonton against Halifax Wanderers. Edmonton sitting bottom at the moment of the standings on 1 point from their 3 games. Halifax are 5th with 2 points from their 3 games. You have to kind of feel if there's a loser in this one, it's going to make it very, very hard for them to kind of advance into the next stage of things. So I want to play you a little bit of audio actually from both head coaches, Jeff Powless from Edmonton and Stephen Hart from Halifax Wanderers. I did the Halifax one after their game on Sunday and the Edmonton one after their game against Cavalry on Thursday night. But basically I just asked both head coaches what they feel they need to get from these remaining games to make it into the top 4. And I asked Stephen Hart an additional question as well, just about the tournament so far. So let's hear from Jeff Powless and Stephen Hart. The results so far, on paper you've got your hardest 2 games, I guess, out of the way. The focus now is on the 5 teams that you've got a really good chance of taking points off. These next 2 games, they're against the 2 teams directly above you in the standings. Do you feel that these games coming up could be kind of the make or break for the team for the rest of the tournament?
Yeah, I think we've, 5 left. I believe we're going to have to win 3 of them. You know, you look at with so many draws, I thought coming in 4 wins would do it. Right now, where everybody's tying each other, you know, I'm thinking 3 wins will probably be enough to get you a top 4 spot. So that's our mindset. You know, we've got a big game against a team that will also kind of, you know, feel the same way we do today with their result yesterday. And, you know, so they'll be up for it. You know, I'm sure that their manager has you know, got them back at it today and you know, is trying to sort that out. So there'll be 2 motivated teams, you know, us against Atletico on Sunday. But yeah, we've got to start. We obviously have to win a game. I mean, it's a, you know, it is what it is at this point. We've lost 2 to the 2 top teams, but 3 out of 5. That's our mindset.
You've had the last 2 games, possibly on paper, the toughest ones that you're going to have in this first phase against the top 2 teams. Good showing in that. The rest of your games now are against those teams that's in and around you in the table, and there's only 3 points separating 3rd to 8th right now. What do you feel you're going to need to take from these matches, do you think, to claim a top 4 spot?
That's a good question. I think we would need to get, well, if we get 6 points, right, we'll be on 8. But things are so tight. I think we need to get 9 points.
The quality of the play in the tournament, it's been really strong in the first 11 days. Have you been surprised at the intensity of the teams having been off for so long? And just what's your general thoughts on the start of the tournament so far?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. Not so much surprised at the intensity, but the quality of some of the games has been good. I know, I mean, we have to be realistic. Sometimes it's a bit rushed, and you need to really slow it down and put your foot on the ball and be a little patient. But with 5 substitutions, you're in a situation where teams can press a lot more because they have fresh legs coming on. So it does make for a bit of a hectic game. But overall, I think so far, the quality has not been bad at all. And you have to be fair to some of the teams that played games at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the heat on turf. I thought that they're doing well.
As we mentioned earlier, for me, the class act in the CPL at the Island Games so far has been Cavalry FC. It's clear as well that they're still not firing on all cylinders, but I mean, they've looked pretty good in their games. 4 matches, 3 wins, 1 draw. That was against defending champs Forge. The latest one came on Sunday night, 2-1 win over Halifax Wanderers. 2 clean sheets in those 4 matches as well. And I jumped on the post-game call with Tommy Wheeldon Jr. after that win against Halifax. So just going to bring you a little bit about that now, just to get Tommy's thoughts on how the team has looked over these first 4 games and just what he's made of the Island Games so far. You've got 4 games under your belt now. When you look back at the team, how they played in that first game against Forge to where they are now, how have you seen this team grow over those 4 games, and how far away do you feel the team is before they're kind of firing on all cylinders for you?
I think what we've seen, Michael, is we've won the football matches or taken points in different ways. I thought we were very good against Forge in the first half and dictated control. They've got a cutting edge to them, and scored 2 good goals on us, but we didn't quit. Right, we got back, we kept going in the game, got out. Valor, we dominated first half, second half just shut up shop. I think that was the inner Italian in me. And I thought Edmonton, we were good from start to finish, really controlled both sides of the ball. And today we were made to work. And like I said, Halifax are a bloody good team. But we found a way to score goals and then just keep it tight and not give away too many chances, because they're very dangerous going forward. So I think what we've shown is we've got different layers to us, but we've kept rotating the team, which isn't always easy because you lose a bit of rhythm. But I think we found a way to create the freshness against teams that perhaps have played a game less than us.
What have you made of the tournament so far then in the first sort of 10, 11 days? There's been a lot of draws, there seems a lot of parity. Just what's been your general thoughts on it?
It's been entertaining, that's for sure. You don't want to log out too early, because you're guaranteed there's a 90-something goal in there, but that's the nature of this beast. It's competitive, it's games every 3 days, but it's entertaining. I think there's some good football going on. I think there's some teams are going out to win it, and I think it's a good advertisement for a product that's we're still growing.
Cavalry FC head coach Tommy Wheeldon Jr. there, and it definitely looked to be the team to beat so far. But this is a marathon, not a sprint. As long as you get into the top 4, it's all to play for when we get to phase 2. But it does look like Cavalry, once again, look to be the team that they're going to have to beat if anyone wants to lift the championship. Last thing just to say about the CPL. Now, the broadcasting and the schedule. Things have been changing quite a lot. They've made a lot of the midweek games now to kick off at 5 p.m. our time, which is going to be better for fans out here. They're not having a clash now with the Champions League on Sunday, so there's that as well. You can watch the games on chch.com on a Sunday and on CBC on the Saturday, all of which makes your One Soccer subscription not seem as good value as I didn't think it was very good value anyway, but it's good that these games are getting out there, that more folk are going to see it. But just to get your thoughts on it, because I gave my thoughts last week, the way that it's done through One Soccer, and I know why it's done through One Soccer, but I don't want to beat this over the head because we talked about it a lot last year. I just don't think when it's a short tournament like this was the way to broadcast it.
No, they needed to do it more effectively. I'm not sure if they did this or not, so you guys have to let me know. They even could have done packages where they did your home team package, so you don't have to buy the whole thing. You just want to watch, your 7 Pacific games. You spend, $30 on that for the 7 Pacific games. They could have done packages like that. So going into next year, they need to look at that. So you don't have to spend $60 on a full season. Maybe spend $20 on a Pacific season. You'll get more. You'll actually might even make more than people wanting to spend $60.
John O'Flynn in the comments talking about he got it. He spent the $78. He says only because he dropped TSN and Sportsnet back in March, and he did not renew his 3 season tickets with the Whitecaps. So getting it was some value for him.
Oh yeah, then it is worth it.
But no, I agree, Michael. It's kind of the whole thing. I didn't like how they did it. I understand why they did it and stuff, but it just all the things combined, the taking it away from season ticket holders without them having to buy in a new way, the taking away the option to subscribe for a month, obviously because that's all people would probably do because they would be able to watch the tournament for just a month or whatever. Seems just a bit off to me, or just not ideal.
It's not goodwill for it. It's a league that's starting so it's only their second year.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
MLS probably didn't do this until 10-15 years down into their thing. So you can't do this too early. You have to build up. You have to build up the audience before you screw them over.
Yeah, I'm really happy that like you said, the weekend games have been available. It's interesting to see that. I don't know if you've seen, but because the games have been on the Fox Sports 2 or whatever in the States, there's now some American.
I appreciate you guys knowing what time the game's on and posting it in chat, so then I know that there's a game on, I better turn it on, because I keep forgetting all the time because I have no idea what day of the week it is most of the time.
Michael, have you seen the groups? Like, there's a Central New York supporters group for Halifax.
No.
Oh yeah, if you go on Twitter, you can find. I forget the actual hash. I'll tell you.
That's superb.
And half the time they're supporting Pacific because they don't realize they're the same.
No.
Because they got the same uniform.
Michael, you'll like this. It's at Wandering Yanks. Wandering Yanks CNY. Independent Supporters Club for the Halifax Wanderers Soccer Club of the CPL. We are based in Central New York. Following 2 followers.
Are you sure it's a supporters group and it's not Cockney rhyming slang?
Maybe it's somebody from England
maybe
they got that term and they use it.
So we've got one last little bit to chat about in tonight's show, and that's going to be looking ahead to Canada and their World Cup qualifying route. We'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Alphonso Davies, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Classic songs with a long history. Southern boys just like you and me. R.E.M.
Welcome back to the final part of tonight's AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And as always, kicking off this final part is the final selection of this week's 3 of a Kind. That was another of AFTN's former Artists of the Month, Pavement there, with a song called Unseen Power of the Picket Fence. A song all about the band R.E.M. Did you work out what this week's link was? Well, we kicked off part 3 with I Ludacris and a song called They're Unstoppable, all about another former AFTN Artist of the Month, Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine. We kicked off part 4 with Art Brut, former Artist of the Month themselves, with a song called The Replacements, all about the band, The Replacements. And kicking off this part, Pavement, Unseen Power of the Picket Fence, a song all about REM. Yes, the connection this week is it was songs by bands all about other bands. Did you get that one? If you did, well done, give yourself a pat on the back. If you didn't, we'll be back with another three of a kind in next week's show. So the last little bit, Canada's path to Qatar 2022. It's all set. It's going to change, let's be brutally honest, because all this is bullshit. It's not going to go ahead. But let's just kind of play along with what is meant to be happening. Canada drawn in Group B with Suriname, Bermuda, the Cayman Islands and Aruba, which in normal times would be an absolutely fantastic little road trip. I'd love that. That would be absolutely amazing. Canada, 73rd in the world. And they're going to be playing Suriname, who's 141. Bermuda, 168th. The Caymans are 193 and Aruba's 200. This is a piece of piss, and if anyone says otherwise, then Canada shouldn't even be in the discussion of going to a World Cup. This is a formality, surely.
Yeah, two players that will probably really be interested in playing Cayman Islands, actually traveling there, is probably Jonathan David and Alfonso Davies after the contracts they've signed recently.
Yeah, it's been their lifelong dream.
They want to go to Cayman Islands for sure. But other than that, yeah, it's the easiest group. It's not going to help them in the FIFA rankings for sure, these games, whether the qualifiers or not.
I'm confident that we could put Zach up front for this one and still get past him. Well, maybe in goal. That would be better.
That would not be good.
But I mean, it should be pretty straightforward. Get through that, and then the winners play the winners of Group E, which should be Haiti. Nicaragua, maybe, but again, Haiti's 86th in the world. Nicaragua is something like 142. They're below Suriname. So it should be Haiti. And as we know, what can go wrong with playing Haiti?
I don't know what.
I don't think they've any voodoo dolls left from the last time, so I mean, it should all be good. But the first round of games, they're going to be getting played in the October and November international window. There's no way international travel for football is surely going to be taking part when still potentially got 14 days quarantine to get back into Canada. You're not going to have the likes of the European players flying over for these tin pot games either. I can see a lot of the countries pulling out altogether. I can't see it going ahead unless they have a bubble environment that all the teams go to and you're playing it in there. There's surely no way that we're going to have international games getting played in October and November.
It's similar, like if they go to like Orlando and all, like they go, one group goes in at a time. Whatever the groups are, 4 or 5 teams, they all go to the one location, play all their games, and then they're out. And then another group comes in, play all their games. That's the only way I can see it happening. And the thing is, what messes it up also is the uncertainty of the European leagues, because we don't know, you don't know when everything's going to start up again. Are they going to? Is there going to be another wave in September and October where they have to shut everything down again? So at this point, I think the World Cup is in danger of being actually happening, even though it's like so far down the road.
I know, because if you can't get the qualifying in place for it, I mean, it's all who knows what.
Maybe it's like South Korea, Canada all over again into like the 2000 Gold Cup where they just flip a coin and see who gets in.
I mean, that drawing straws or is it flipping coins?
I thought it was a flip of a coin.
Okay.
If they can't go ahead and they just make the top 8 go into the octopus, as I'm calling it, then Canada would be there. They'd be one of the tentacles that would have made it through. But I mean, even that is surely got to be in doubt as well. And I know you're looking way into next year. The way the things are just now, it's hard to see international travel. I mean, you can see domestic travel, maybe even Canada and America will get better, but international travel.
I think right now they just put the schedule out, hoping for the best, because they got to have a schedule out for people to be ready to do something. But everything's like a wrestling card is subject to change. So there's nothing set in stone right now at all.
No. Well, I mean, it's like Europa League and Champions League. They had to have that in the one place. And I think that's the only way that this can work. And you pick, normally it would be America, but I mean, it doesn't seem a great place to go unless you do it again at Disney World of Sports, which once everyone was in the bubble, everything worked out great. We've seen it in PI as well. If you're in a bubble environment, and the hockey as well, once you're in that bubble environment, things seem to go well. It's when you're not in the bubble environment, as the USL teams have shown. So for me, the way to do this is to keep the bubbles going. We've already kind of had word out that a Chicago Fire player has tested positive of COVID, so we're not sure what impact that will have, or whether he had it going into the Columbus game, whether he caught it from travelling to the Columbus game, stuff like that. Obviously that's league play, but then if you're factoring in international stuff, it's an even greater risk. Even if you're chartering in and out, you're going to different countries, and I just don't really see how this is going to come off. But I guess we'll see how this all plays out in the coming weeks and months. I mean, mentioned the Champions League there. Can't obviously go this episode without giving a huge congratulations to Alphonso Davies, winning his very first Champions League with Bayern Munich on Sunday afternoon. 1-0 win. Some good stuff from Alphonso in the final, and it's just capped off a fantastic time for Fonzie after he headed over to Germany. Also capped off some good stuff for the Whitecaps too, because the rumours are they're going to get about €1 million from Fonzie starting that final and then winning it. So let's see how that gets spent. Or not, as the case might be. So that is nearly all for this episode of the AFTN Soccer Show. But as always, we cannot leave you without this week's wavelength. And this week we are going back to a song from 2005 from an English singer-songwriter called Jim Neuer. It was his debut EP. It also featured on his debut album Tower of Love that was released in December 2005. And some of you may recognise it. It was used in an Adidas World Cup commercial in 2006. This is the Fatboy Slim remix of the song. This is Jim Neuer with Eeny Meeny.
Ball back, I'm gonna get my dad on you. I only kicked it over your fence and broke the ceiling, no more too. If you don't give my football back, I'm gonna get my dad on you. I only kicked it over your fence and broke the ceiling, no more too. Steal my
Jim Neuer there with Eeny Meeny. I picked that song just because in the first part of the show we were talking about like playground games, attackers and defenders and stuff like that. And when you think of childhood football, for me, it comes down to things like just running around endlessly for hours, playing football till it gets dark, jumpers for goalposts, and kicking your ball over a neighbour's fence and then trying to get it back. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that one. Hope you enjoyed this show. Just before we go though, lads, let everyone know where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter at WhitecapsBeat.
For me, it's at Zachary AM.
And I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Also for some Scottish chat on AFTN website. You can find us on YouTube, but you'll know that if you're watching a YouTube stream, on AFTN Canada. Please subscribe and turn on notifications, give the thumbs up to this video, leave comments, it helps with the algorithms. And I hadn't really cared about subscribers before, but if we get to 1,000 subscribers, we can make some money. And I think we get a little plaque or something, or that might just be 100,000, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a little higher to get the plaque.
Well, let's get us 100,000 then.
It doesn't have to be real subscribers either, just get 100,000.
Oh.
If we just need bots, you should talk to the FO. I'm sure they could help us with that.
That's what I meant by that.
Anyway, until next time, thanks for listening, take care, and mon the Caps.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
10 minutes left, yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name, that's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story, let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers, away from the numbers.
AFTN.